Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or we've had a big setback? On this podcast, I'll be talking to some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on this planet who at their worst learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible, leveling up and creating everything from nothing. How does a stuttering, shy, 4.4 GPA student from a loving, attentive family get busted for dealing drugs and before the age of 19? And then the bigger question, how does he go from a drug bust, DEA arrest, to being one of the top coaches coaching seven-figure entrepreneurs congruently in the industry? I wanted to know exactly how Alex Moscow went from that stuttering shy kid to entrepreneurship illegally to then thriving in the most congruent of ways. Listen in today and learn exactly how Alex Moscow leveled up and created everything from nothing. Today on Leveling Up, I've got Alex Moscow, who I'm so excited to interview because I met him actually in a personal development program a while ago. I didn't know who he was. He just came in very confident. And I thought, who is this confident guy? I remember what you were wearing specifically, Alex. And I thought, he's so confident. I love it. But I met him there. And then my husband and I were both in this course with him. We were on the staff of it. We were coaching it. And my husband ended up really getting to know him. He ended up hiring Alex as his coach later. And I could not believe how much my own husband transformed working with Alex. So I was like, who is this Alex? Where did he come from? Why is he so confident? How was he this successful? How does he make this much sense? And how did you change my husband like you did? So I've gotten to know him as a friend, but I'm excited to dive in today and learn exactly how Alex jumped in and is basically leading the pack with coaching. And he's training other entrepreneurs how to create seven-figure coaching empires. And he's legit. He's amazing. And his background's incredible. So thank you, Alex, for being here today.
Thanks so much, Natalie. Excited to be on.
So take us back, Alex, because I'm assuming you weren't born knowing all this amazing stuff about coaching high-powered entrepreneurs. You weren't born with a silver spoon. Who were you before all this?
Yeah. So before all this, I was very shy. I would find myself in class, like growing up, really, like I felt like I was a smart kid. Like I would study, I would work hard. Yeah. But I was not outgoing. Like I was always managing the type of risk that I would put myself in. And a big part of that was because I grew up and I had a big challenge with a stutter. Like I remember very vividly, there was an experience where in kindergarten, we were playing a game and like, it's a game to learn everyone's name. And when it came to my turn, I couldn't say my name. And it was like really traumatic. Like it came to me and I was, and I just couldn't say my name. And that memory it's come back. And that was like the first experience that I could recall of like, wow, like I really had a challenge that I would get to, really work through and to really like learn how to adapt to life. And that impacted me. And, there were some negative ways, but it also taught me a lot. And
That's interesting. Yeah. When that happened as a kid, was it like a story you were making up around it, or were kids making fun of you, or were you just noticing it in your own skin?
Yeah. So the first experience that I could remember I've been through a lot of transformational processes to like go back to the timeline, the exact moment. And the one was that in kindergarten where it came time to say my name and I couldn't say my name. And then like, I was like shaking and I was sweating. And then when I opened my eyes, like, the whole class just laughed at me and I like burst into tears. Wow. And I just ran out of the room. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was it was very clear that other people noticed, and it was very clear. Yeah. It was very clear that like I was, I felt like an outcast. I felt like no one understood me. I felt like I really wasn't a part of everyone else. I felt very different and separated.
Yeah. Did that create a story of did you become introverted because of that? Like what did that do to you as a kindergartner going through that?
Yeah. So in going through that, it really, like that experience, as you can imagine, was very painful. So I feel like that really caused me to kind of walk on like eggshells when, like even in school, like when I would know an answer, like I wouldn't raise my hand. I can even remember even right now if like I'd put my hand up and I put it right back down. It's like I knew the answer, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to put myself out there of like saying or like putting myself in jeopardy of like stuttering through an answer and then everyone laughing at me again.
You didn't want to call attention to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
my
So
gosh.
yeah.
How do you break through that? Because that's a very real thing. And I think people carry those childhood stories forever. I mean, was that something you broke through as a child? Did that take years?
Yeah. So I mean, in looking back in hindsight, which is where we usually get the wisdom, right? Like I can look back and I could see how I unconsciously chose to become a high achiever. So I excelled in sports. I played, I played baseball my whole life at a really high level, like internationally. And I got really good grades in school. And so I still like had the other kids were like looking up to me, but it was weird to me because it was just something that I just wanted people just to like me. I wanted so bad for people just to like me and to be accepted. And I felt like
Yeah.
I needed to like perform and to achieve in order for that to happen.
Wow. So take us through that then, because I know you ended up becoming successful, maybe not the legal way, but you became successful as as a teenager or a late teen or college. When was that? And
Yeah.
what was happening
So
there?
yeah. So I mean, I graduated high school with like a 4.3 GPA. Went to San Diego State, and I'll never forget. It was May 5th, 2008, and right after a huge Cinco de Mayo party at my fraternity at San Diego State, I like I hear my window shatter, and I'm woken up with assault rifles in my face, and there are at least four big men
Whoa.
with just assault gear, or yeah, with just like SWAT gear on, and they're yelling DEA, DEA.
Whoa.
And I went home with the girl the night before, so I'm thrown on the floor butt naked, like I get the handcuffs on me, and they're just asking, do I have any heroin, any ecstasy, any cocaine,
Whoa.
meth, crack, and I'm just like, what is happening, And
Yeah.
so then I go, so that was my first entrepreneurial experience, so to say. In college, I was selling drugs. I was
Whoa.
selling.
Okay,
Yeah,
back up a
yeah,
second
yeah,
because
yeah,
I got so many questions now. So
yeah.
how does a kid that is that smart getting the 4.3 GPA, which is an A plus, how do you get into that? How does that happen?
Yeah, so I liked to party, and I
Okay.
also, it was a way for me to, I definitely coped through high school, like where I'd have a couple of drinks and then my speech would get a little better, and also it was just a way of connection. I mean, everything for me was it was a vehicle to just create more connection with my friends, with people around me.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was in college and I joined a fraternity, and then like it wasn't like, yes, I was selling drugs, which is obviously not, it's very illegal, and
Yeah.
it wasn't like gangs and guns and all this. It was like I was in a fraternity, like all these, like San Diego State, all these kids have money, so it wasn't like there wasn't the like dangerous stigma around it. And to me, I was 19, so I was
Yeah.
18, 19, so I thought I was invincible, like I was just like, oh, nothing's ever going to happen, this and that. And so I just started to get involved with a certain group of friends where it wasn't of my highest alignment of what we'd call it now,
Right.
right? And yeah, so I was hanging around people who were doing drugs. I was doing drugs, and people kept asking me if I could get them. And I was like, wow, like, the entrepreneurial spirit. I was like, it
Mm.
doesn't make sense for me just to keep going and middlemaning all this stuff. So I'm just going to pick some up and I'm going to start to sell it.
So this is an interesting topic. And as I'm listening, as I'm asking you these questions, I'm sitting here thinking I have a 12-year-old daughter who's not that much younger than 18. And I'm like, how does
Mm-hmm.
how does that happen to a kid or not happen to a kid? So
Mm-hmm.
like, I get what you just said about the stuttering and the coping and all of that, but like, did your parents know what was going on? What was
Yeah,
their role here? Did you have siblings? Like, did teachers see this? Like, I'm just trying to understand all that too. And I'm
totally.
sure, you looking ahead to, if you have kids one day, you're probably asking those same questions.
Totally. So yeah, like none of my family knew. None of my family knew. And my truth is, like, I didn't have to do it. Like I didn't have to at all. It was, for me at the core. It was. I mean, as someone who stutters, like, it's a great way to meet people. Like, it's a great way to rather than like going out and like meeting people. Like, my biggest fear was to talk to a stranger. So instead, I had
Yeah.
all these strangers come talk to me. So
Wow.
that was at the core of it, and like, I had amazing, loving parents who supported me, like who gave me allowance, and it wasn't for the money, like I wasn't selling
Yeah.
drugs for the money. It was, did I like the entrepreneurial spirit? Of course I did. And it was more so, it was just the ways that I could connect with other kids that were there.
It's so interesting how love will drive people to create, like wanting to be loved, wanting to fit in,
Mm-hmm.
wanting the people pleasing, all of that. It's amazing how that can make that decision. Did you know? So doing makes sense to me. Like it was giving you that coping, because I don't inherently look at people that do drugs as bad people. I think they're looking to feel okay. They're looking to solve a problem, and drugs, right or wrong, they solve the problem for them because they feel better. So that makes sense to me. Not that it's right, but it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense how that happens. How do you, when the idea of the business came up though, like to do something illegal like that, you were a smart kid. Did it occur to you like this is illegal, I can get caught, or you really just thought you were invincible?
I literally thought I was invincible. I mean, at that age, I was, I drank a lot of alcohol. I was drinking and driving. Like I
Wow.
was not making good choices at that age.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing to think back, like you're lucky you're alive or you didn't kill somebody
Oh my
or,
goodness. So grateful. Yeah. So grateful. Like I didn't hurt myself or hurt anyone else
yeah.
in that phase of my life.
So imagining this drug raid, this bus was probably a blessing.
Oh, it was the biggest blessing because if not, like I could just see I could see myself just going down. Or there's
Mhm.
different. Oh, there's in a world of infinite possibilities. There's the possibility that like I would have kept doing it, gotten
Yeah.
bigger, maybe gotten in some really huge trouble, or like
Yeah.
gotten involved with even worse down that path.
Okay, so what happened? So you go through this arrest. What happened then? Were your parents on your side? Did you
Yeah.
even and how did this shift happen? Did you go to jail? Tell us about that.
Yeah, totally. So I got arrested and I sold to an undercover agent. So there's no like, hey, is he innocent or guilty? It's literally
Wow.
selling to undercover agent. And so it wasn't like I had to call my parents in and tell them. It was the San Diego State drug bust. So it was on CNN News. So
Wow,
like
Alex.
all over the news, like I was in my family, the golden boy, like got
Yeah.
4.4 in school, varsity baseball player, got scholarships to, play baseball at different schools. And I'm on CNN News getting arrested in the San
Mhm.
Diego State drug bust for selling drugs. And I think this is the way that I know that like God, the
Mhm.
universe, life has a sense of humor where on CNN News, it's everyone's mugshot, like everyone's mugshot, everyone's, got arrested, like a mugshot. But for me, maybe I knew I took a mugshot, but they maybe misplaced it or something because it was
Yeah.
my senior picture, like
Oh my
Abercrombie and
gosh.
Fitch, like lime green button-up shirt, Abercrombie and Fitch,
Yeah.
um, just a picture of me on CNN News in front of like the whole like nation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how my parents found out. My
Crazy.
grandparents, like everyone knew.
Whoa. No, what did they do? Did they go down were disowning you, or were they supportive? What happened
They
there?
were super supportive. Like I'm so grateful. And that was the most painful thing as I was sitting there in that cop car. I was like, fuck, like
Yeah.
talking to my parents who supported me, who've been giving me allowance. Like I have to explain to them that like I was still like selling drugs, even though they were financially supporting me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like, it was just such a disconnect from
Oh my
who they
gosh.
knew me as.
So what happened? You go to trial? Did you go to jail? And how long? And tell us that.
Yeah. So I went to jail for like for 48 hours
Okay.
and got bailed out. So my dad and my girlfriend at the time drove down from Las Vegas to San Diego, bailed me out of jail. And yeah, like they bailed me out of jail and we looked for a lawyer. I know that one of my dad's friends gave us a recommendation for a
Mm.
really great criminal defense attorney in San Diego. And long story short, like we went through and I got off on probation. So there was no like official jail
Whoa.
time.
You were
Um,
lucky. So
that I
lucky.
was, that I was very lucky, very
And was
lucky.
that enough to stop you in your tracks of that?
Yeah. And so what happened was as I was going through that, I was invited to my first like personal development event, which I
Okay.
would not have been open to before.
Yeah.
And like, 19 years old, thinking I have everything figured out, I'm invincible, that getting arrested by the DA turn on some light bulbs for me, So I was like, okay, I obviously don't have everything figured out. And
Hmm.
so I went to my first event.
What was that first event?
It was awesome. It was like, I'm not going to say the name.
Okay.
It was a Tony Robbins and a landmark type of event. It was all around
Okay.
like limiting beliefs. It was mindset.
Got it.
Yeah, it was all around mindset. It was all around
Okay.
like the story you tell yourself is what creates what your
Yeah.
reality is. So you can tell yourself whatever you want.
And I think all personal development has an underlying theme about beliefs and stuff. So
Yep.
I think all of it's great. So
Yeah. Totally.
But you
Totally.
found it. Did a friend tell you about this event? How
Yeah.
did you like even figure out to go?
Yeah. I had a friend who was actually involved in network marketing. And
Okay.
so it was like one of their leaders was going to the event. So they were
Got it.
inviting everyone to go. Yeah, it was that world.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
so you went there and you had your eyes open to something else.
Yeah, to something else. And that put me on the path of like, I've always been into like, it's, human psychology and personal growth, but I've never been to an event before. And as my experience is like events are the most powerful tool for transformation, more than books, more than,
I believe that.
DVDs or courses. Cause there's something when you're in the live energy of other people, there's something just different that happens. And so
I believe that. I think like you can
yeah,
read a book, you can listen to a podcast for an hour or whatever, but it's not the same as being immersed in it.
totally. And so fast forward when I'm on probation, like I'm like all in, like I drink the personal development Kool-Aid, like
Yeah.
I'm in it and I'm like going to my probation officer. I'm like, hey, I want to go to talk to schools. Like I want to go like help kids don't do this. And like, I'm like annoying the shit out of my probation officer. Like he's so annoyed with me. And so like, literally I get off of my, like, I was supposed to be on probation for 3.5 years. I get off in like a year and 2 months or a year.
Cause he's just sick of you.
Yeah. He's sick of me. He's sick of me. So, yeah, like, and so then after that, like I started, or while I was on probation, I got back into, I went to University of San Diego because I got expelled from San Diego State because that's what happens when you get arrested by the DA when you're in school. I got back into USD, which is a private, private better school, and it was like $24,000 a semester, and I was like, holy shit, like I'm doing the like math here, and like I'm gonna come out of school, 160, 170 grand in debt.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to make $40,000 a year at a job. And I was like, this just doesn't make sense to me. So I was going to these events and they started to teach about like online marketing and this whole world. And I was like, wow, like I'm pretty good at tech and I can build websites and I like understand, human relationship. And that's when I started a marketing agency when I was 20 and 21.
Okay. Yeah. So before we get into that, a couple questions that are coming up for me.
Totally.
So I would imagine you had a very specific type of friend before you were busted, and you couldn't have those friends after you were busted. So talk to me about that shift. Was that an easy one? Was that a hard one? Did you keep those friends? And did that make a difference in your journey?
Yeah, there was... I would say I kept my majority, and this is what's been interesting, even reflecting back now, is like I kept probably 75% of the same friends.
Really?
Like, yeah, I kept 75% of the same friends, and like everyone knew, like everyone was like super supportive. Everyone kept anything that was going to jeopardize me or my decisions like out of my life.
Okay.
But I feel like I've always had really great friends, like who cared about me, who cared about. Yeah, who just really cared about me and what was best for me.
So they weren't trying to bring you back into that world. Yeah. Was it more, did you find yourself leveling them up to a possibility now that you were stepping into different things?
Yes. And looking back, yes, I did. And it didn't happen instantly. Like it took my consistency in who I was becoming and showing up as that version of myself for them to up level. And I was a great filtration system for those who were real friends who wanted to live on that level, and those who did not.
So then this is all happening 2008, 2009. And what's also happening in that time was we had the whole housing market crash and stock market crash. So the internet marketing stuff was really just starting to be born. So there was also some good timing there. So how did you, it's interesting that you like saw that opportunity from this. How did that even come about? Like you said, you were going to events and stuff, but where did that idea that I'm going to make money online or I'm going to figure out this marketing thing come from?
Yeah. So I, as I shared, I went to my first event that was related to network marketing, and my first, I was enrolled into an opportunity, right? So I was enrolled into in a
network marketing opportunity.
Into a network marketing opportunity, and that really taught me. It taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about personal development. It taught me a lot about running a business is hard if you want. There are parts of it that are hard if you want to be successful. And I also looked at it of just like, this is super old school for me. Other people can run the system that they teach and it works. And for me, I was like, there has to be a better way. Okay. So I looked at some of the different mentors that I first got. They were building, network marketing companies to, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 per month, all building it all online. And so I was like, okay, like this sounds a lot better than asking my friends and family and every single
Yeah.
person who I meet to do this. And again, nothing I have so much appreciation for that industry. And I was like, there has to be a better way. So I started to look at how to build it online, and I started to develop some skill sets of building a personal brand, of building a personal brand for myself, using social media effectively, how to provide value and be value focused. Because that whole model is, when you're value focused, then you can enroll them into a network marketing opportunity when you lead with value first. It's never about the network marketing company or the opportunity. It's about value.
Sure.
So,
I love that you just said that. I think that applies for anything in sales, by the way. Like, I think when people lead with the product features and benefits, that they're missing it.
100%. And so that's how I started. And then there was, so that's how it started. Then I was in that, and I was like, this is just not like, I'm so grateful for that experience. And there was a program that came out that was said, hey, like, are you struggling building your network marketing company online? Do you have these skills in building social media and, building blogs and X, Y, and Z? And I was like, yes. They're like, hey, you can take that and you can package it and sell it to a small business, and you can help a lot more people, and you can make a lot more money. So that's where I started a online marketing company, a digital agency for local businesses, from going through that course. And so I also, and this is not financial advice. This is not, this is just my own experience. I took sorry, mom and dad, if you're listening to this, I took my entire next semester's college tuition and I invested into a coaching program. Like
a coaching program for you.
Yeah, a coaching program for me, so that I can really learn how to build this online marketing business.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But what people miss here, though, and this is good, I want this audience to hear this, because a lot of times people look at it as like they can't afford or they don't want to spend. But when you're investing, it's investing. When you're investing in a coaching program for you, it's yourself you're investing in.
Totally.
It's not
100%.
The coach. It's yourself.
100%. It's 100% yourself. And you invest in it's through whatever the opportunity is. And so...
And it's not like, and I want people to hear that too, because it's not like you just had extra money laying around. It's not like you literally had to use from something else to invest in yourself. Totally.
I mean, even like Tony teaches that it's not about, the amount of resources you have. It's about your amount of resourcefulness. And in going through what I've went through, what I've shared about, like I became very resourceful, like when I had my back against the wall, like I was very resourceful, and like I got a new perspective. There was a new lens of life that I looked at. So when I was looking at the opportunity of like going to school and finishing college versus starting a business, I chose that, hey, like I wanted to start this business.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you went to this coaching program. Did you have any second guesses? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I spending the money? Was that coming up? And how did you shut that voice up?
All the time. So all the time. I think that those thoughts are normal. I think that they're normal thoughts. It's the same voice that, like, when you say, hey, like I'm gonna, like I want to get healthy now, and I want to start going to the gym. I'm gonna wake up at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I'm gonna go to the gym, and then 6 a.m. comes around, alarm goes off, boom, hand goes to snooze. 10 minutes later, snooze again. Like, when did we start to listen to that voice?
Yeah.
That voice in our head that there's an automatic, there's an autopilot system that is governing our reactions and our habits. And so that same voice is the same voice that was telling me of like, can I do this? Should I have finished school? Am I worth doing this? Are people actually going to listen to me? Can I be successful? Oh, no, you're not. You're going to fail. That voice is normal. Like it's normal.
Yeah.
It's just I forget the science behind this, or who this is from, but we have 75,000 thoughts per day.
Yeah.
It's not our choice whether we have those thoughts or not. It is our choice of what we feed our attention and our energy into. And so those thoughts of, I'm not good enough. Can I do this? Did I make a mistake? Those are all normal thoughts to have. It's getting aligned with what's our vision and what's our truth in it. Because all those thoughts our mind is meant to keep us small and to keep us safe. And if we want to have a different life and create something new, then we also get to have different thoughts.
Totally.
And to think that, we're going to do one thing and everything is going to shift and all our beliefs are going to go away. It's crazy.
Yeah. How do you balance that? I'm curious. This is just getting a little bit off topic, but I'm really curious here. You probably read The Surrender Experiment, which I read.
I've read parts of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of you that haven't read that book, it's fascinating, but the gist of it is he goes through an experiment of not listening to the voice in his head and cutting off the voice in his head and literally letting life call the shots and giving up all control and surrendering. And it's just fascinating what shows up in his life. And I'm just wondering, because it is very real that we have those 75 thoughts a day. 75,000 thoughts a day. How do you know what's intuition and gut and your higher self talking versus like, this is just noise, I shouldn't listen?
Totally. It's such a good question. Such a good question. Jennifer and I were actually just talking about this, where like, what is intuition and what's fear?
Yeah.
You know, like, and how do we make that actual discernment? And so I think my experience is when we're in tune to our body, and when we slow down enough to actually listen, that guidance comes in. Like, we know, like in our gut, we know, like, or I'll say, I know when it's fear, and I know when it's my intuition. Like there's a different texture to it.
Okay.
And so for me, if it feels constrictive, then that's fear for me. If it's an idea that feels expansive, but I'm scared shitless, like that's intuition of knowing that it's right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. I hope listeners grab that. I've asked myself that same question because I have that voice. It's like nonstop blah, 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 all the time telling me. So,
Totally.
and I think I would have maybe described it a little different, but I would say I look at, is it fit into vision and do I get excited about it? Like if I can, if it lights me up, if it gives me fired up, then it's that. But if it's, if my body doesn't feel good around it. So but I'm still figuring that out and navigating it. That's why I asked you too.
Yeah. I think one of the best things that I've done is, whether it's fear or it's excitement or it's intuition, like I take the action anyway and I figure it out. Like, and then I learn from the experience of taking the action, and then like, oh shit, that was, my intuition was telling me that, and it turned out like, it turned out negative or whatever it would be. Right? Yeah. But I think that so much, or what I've discovered and what I see most people do wrong, is they just sit and they do nothing. Where I feel like we get to learn and we get to really flex our muscle of intuition, and we get to really recognize what is fear from taking the action and seeing what happens on the other side of it.
That's good. So, okay. So you invest in yourself in coaching, and you learn the internet marketing and you learn coaching. Take us through that journey, because right now, like you're young. I mean, you're pretty young. You don't have like the resume of a lot of coaches, right? But you're crushing it, and you're not cheap. You're not, I wouldn't say you're a low price coach, but you get people massive results. Like, I have so many questions. Like, how did you get the confidence to charge what you do? How did you get the confidence to go after people that were more experienced than you, older than you, to coach them? Like, where did that come from? Because I think so many people would be in their heads around that.
Yeah. So can I share one quick story that I think will put context for this? So that story of getting arrested by the DEA, that's a story that I tell from stage. So many people know that story. So I'm going to tell you another story of a story that I don't tell very often.
Okay.
And the story is that after I got arrested on probation, I moved into my parents' place back in Vegas for 6 months. Then I moved back to San Diego. 6 months in living in San Diego, I'm living in a house with my old friends, and I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time, and there's cops that come, and I get arrested a second time.
Oh my gosh!
I get arrested a second time, and this time I don't tell anybody. So I don't tell my family or anything. And my charge, I'm facing like 12 to 15 years in jail.
For what? The same thing, or was it?
Yeah. Okay. So I had friends who I had friends who were selling drugs, and even though they weren't doing it around me, they were still doing it. And so I was looped into that whole
like
circle.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Wrong place, wrong time. Yeah. And so when that happened, I was going through court, and I made the decision, like, I'm gonna fight this on my own. Like, I can't tell I literally just got arrested. I can't tell my parents again. I just made that decision. And as I went through that, like, I hired a lawyer. I took out credit cards, 19, I took out credit cards, took out loans so I can pay for a lawyer. And then it was up to the last court, like our last day in court. And the settlement from the DA's office was like 8 years in jail. Like, that was the settlement. Whoa. That was that deal. And my lawyer comes to me and is like, hey, this is what the offer is, or we go to trial. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, what's that mean? I watched it on TV, but what is it? do you mean? And they're like, well, we go to trial, and if you're found guilty, you'll probably go to jail for 15 to 16, 17 years.
Whoa.
Or you'll get off. And so like, I was like, I know I didn't do this, and I can't live with myself going for something I didn't do.
Yeah.
So let's go to trial. And so that was another like, another 10 grand to go to trial that I didn't have, that I figured out. And I went to trial and I fought it, and I'm obviously still here. I'm not in jail right now. So, well, and I won.
You knew you were innocent. You believed you were, knew you were.
And so I went through that whole experience by myself though. So, and that taught me, if I'm going to bet on anything in this world, I'm going to bet on myself.
That's incredible.
And that is carried out time and time and time again of in business, you know, and of creating the life that I want. Like, so I've always had, for me, I've always like been deeply ingrained in my core to just go for it. Like in just, you know, in sports and school, like there's just been a fire in me, despite whatever challenge that I have in my life. And so I share that with you because in going into starting a business, you know, when I was 21, online marketing agency, like I was watching these videos and they're like, hey, like you can charge, you know, you can take a doctor or lawyer and you can charge them $5,000 a month because their cost per client, their value per client is really high. So when I was like, I'm just going to go for it. Like, and so I went and I got my first client. It was for $4,400 per month at 21 years old. My first ever client. So
that's like a huge number at that time, I'm assuming. So you probably shocked yourself a little bit.
I saw a huge bit. A huge bit. And so for me, that there was like, I was able to like stand in that value. And I also, after that, I hired mentorship. So I hired my first high level coach, Ted McGrath, who was a great coach of mine. And he helped me land a 6-figure client when I was 21. So I sold a $9,000 per month contract, $108,000 contract when I was 21. And I just always had that drive to just go for it. So the money was great there. And I had no clue how to run a business, had no clue how to create systems, how to hire, how to build processes. And so the long story short, the universe aligned. I went to go work. So Ted fired his staff and I fired all my clients. And so I went to go work with Ted, and he had a coaching business. And for me, I could sell marketing. I could help with marketing, but I always wanted to like help people. Like I always wanted to, I even traced back of like, I was always the guy in my friends group where people would come and they would ask for advice, and I would always give advice. And they always seemed to come to me. I was like, wow, I'm the kid who stutters, but they want advice from me for some reason. Yeah. And going into Ted's organization, it was one step closer to helping people with coaching. But I didn't have the confidence in myself to actually go out and do it on my own yet. So I went to go partner up with Ted, and I spent 4.5 years in his business where he was an amazing mentor. He was one of my really good friends, and I helped him build his business. When we first started, you know, there was like $6-7 grand in the bank account. And when I left, there was multiple 7 figures. Wow. And so from the ground up, like blood, sweat, and tears, 110 hour work weeks of just building. And again, I don't recommend this. You don't have to do this. Yeah. And it was the multi-million dollar education that I would not trade like anything for.
But I think it's also it speaks volumes to you and your character and stepping into learning versus just offering too. I think that some people skip those steps. You know, they want to be the successful coach or successful entrepreneur, but they don't want to put in the groundwork. They don't want to learn. They don't want to take the time. And I also think it's great for confidence to go and actually work with somebody else or under somebody else or in their business first. So you do learn it. So I think that's huge. And I think it's not something to overlook. I think people skip it and they want to be this high powered coach or whoever out of nowhere.
Totally. So to touch back on like on the actual value and how did I launch in what I'm doing now, where our programs, you know, start at $2 grand, they go upwards of 6 figures. And that it didn't happen overnight, you know, like for me, it was, I was probably inside of Ted's organization for 2 years too long. So I knew I wanted to leave and do my own thing. And I went through 2 years of pain of like knowing that I wanted to do it on my own, but not honoring that, you know, and still doing 110 hour work weeks. So, and I didn't set myself. And so when I learned a lot through that of like, when I left the organization, I was burnt out. I was super burnt out. And I was like, I can either work more hours, work harder, or I could charge more. And so for me, like the light bulb went off of like, of like, there's either going to be an exchange of time for money, and I could just do volumes more, which I've done, which I'm not going to do anymore. Or like I could work with a higher level person, a higher level client, to where it's not a huge stretch for them, to where the value is going to be 10x because they're a higher level person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And I also think for people looking for coaches to really pay attention to that, because you don't want a coach that has thousands and thousands of clients, because that makes a big difference. So you invest more and they have less clients, they're going to pay more attention to you, I believe.
Yeah. So I built my whole business to start. It was all based on intimacy, where like I worked with all of the like top people in the coaching space, where I was a part of their team. I ran their events. I sold at their events. I was a sales manager for them. I put out a lot of fires for a lot of the top people in the industry, which was a huge learning experience in its own. And so when I left, and again, I left and it didn't happen like that. Like I left and I was like, oh my goodness, can I do this? Am I an imposter? Did everyone listen to me? Because I didn't just help, my mentor build his business. He was coaching coaches too. So I helped all of our clients build it too. And when I left, I was like, who am I? I feel like a fraud, did they just listen to me because of him? So I had. So
how did you overcome that? That's a big one. That's a big question.
Yeah, I like all of that was there, and I knew that was my fear. So for me, it's like to get to where we want to go, we can't have our fear and not do nothing. We can have our fear. We still have to do the uncomfortable thing, with or without the fear there. So for me, it was like, I'm just going to try it and I'm going to see what happens. So all of that stuff is still there. And so when I launched, I was helping people with their live events, and it was one-on-one consulting. And I just went out and I launched, my own business, and it was a $30,000 offer. And that $30,000 offer, it was someone who knew me, and they said yes. So for me, it was so much pain. And it was like, it didn't just happen like that. I literally was like fighting with myself. Oh my God, do I charge $100 a session? I just need to figure this out. Or it's like, no, I have knowledge, I have experience. I've put in literally, over 15,000 hours of work in that organization, learning my craft. So I could either, there's two different voices going on, so it's what I listen to. Then I was like, okay, I'm just going to go for what is it that I want? What would I love?
That's so good. And I also think what is brilliant that you did, and I hope listeners are picking up on this, is that you're not letting the market dictate what you should charge. It's not about what should I charge, or what can people afford, or because that has nothing to do with it. It's what is your value? What are you bringing to the table, and crafting your own offer based on your gifts and skills.
Yeah, for me, it was, what would I be so fucking excited for? What would I be so excited for, to where I could pour all of my energy and attention into this person? That was the first thing that I wanted. I was like, rather than stressing out about building funnels or building all this other stuff, it's like, how can I just get a handful of people that I can invest all my time and energy into to really serve them and to support them and go above and beyond all of the other all of the gaps that I saw in the industry that were where people were being underserved. So I was like, how do I get what I want and to deliver 10 times to the people who I work with?
Yeah, that's incredible. How did you come up with the name Congruent Coach?
I feel like our brand names they're oftentimes the medicine that we need the most. And I continue to keep getting the lessons of congruence. One, it was from a whole lot of pain of being just so grateful to be in I feel like I was born in the coaching space. So I'm 30 years old right now, been in the space for 10 years. And I've been really fortunate to have worked on the inside of a lot of the people who I've looked up to for years and my heroes. And I've also been very disappointed by meeting some of my heroes, not on stage, but behind the scenes. And so seeing there is a lack of integrity, a lack of congruence there. And also just seeing that maybe these people have great businesses, but their health was there's a secret diagnosis that no one knows about.
Wow.
Or that there's, their relationship is falling apart, or that they're there's a lot of infidelity in their relationship. So I was just like, wow, this is not okay. And so for me, a congruent coach isn't just, it isn't just being great at what you do. It's not just being great at your sales and your marketing, to where it's in integrity and you're really standing for people powerfully, but it's how do you not just have all that, but your life also is crushing it too, where your relationships, your health, your finances, your relationship with your family. That's another big piece. Like all these big speakers who I saw, like who are even transformational speakers, like they're preaching everything about transformation, but then like they would still like slip in little comments about, oh, my family still thinks I'm this and that, or I still put on the mask when I'm back to my family. It's like, wow, like why, and like I share that where like I don't know if we shared this with you, but like Jennifer and I just got back from Mary Morrissey's event where like she brought her whole family, her mom and her dad, her sister, her 3 cousins, and I brought my mom. So it was their first personal development event. Like we're sharing all of the tools that have helped us through our family. And so that's what Congruent Coach has been about, of like, how do we, like, for me, it was like, I want to walk people down a path that's worked for me. It's not the only path. It's not right, wrong, good, bad. It's just what's worked for me. And so I feel congruent sharing of just all the stuff that I've done. And the reason why my business grew to 7 figures in the way that it did and is continuing to grow is, I believe it's because of the congruence that I'm pumping into it. And it's not just about making money. It's not just about, our sales and marketing. It's about like our service delivery. It's about being able to enjoy it as well.
That's incredible. Alex, if someone's listening right now, and this is a question I ask all my guests, if they're listening and they're in their own personal rock bottom, I don't know, maybe they were just busted by the TEA or maybe not, but just anything, business failure, setback, health scare, they're in their own personal rock bottom, which you've had several of them, it sounds like. If you were to give them advice looking from the outside in to them on how they can start shifting and turning everything around, what would you tell them to do?
Everything is temporary. Like everything is. I believe that one of the biggest challenges in just our culture is that we like only celebrate the big wins. Whereas the different breakdowns, the failures, those, like, if we celebrated those just as much as we celebrated our wins, we'd have a much different culture. And so it's all temporary. Even our wins don't last forever. Our wins last 5 minutes, and our failures are similar as well. It's just that most of us have an attachment to what life is supposed to look like. And we have an unmet expectation for what a breakdown or what a failure is to look like. And oftentimes there's so much of our personal emotion and story that gets caught in to when we hit our rock bottom. And so my biggest piece of advice is to surround yourself with awesome people, like get feedback. You don't have to do it on your own. Humans, I believe, we're wired to help each other. And it's also one of the most vulnerable and scary things to do is to ask for support. And so my biggest piece of advice is to, one, don't do it by yourself. Like surround yourself with people who you trust and just let them know. Like there's so many people some of the most successful people I know are struggling in silence because they're terrified of what other people may think about them just because they don't have it all figured out. So that rock bottom moment, I think it can be such a beautiful experience, and it can be a catapult and a springboard to what's next. And if we keep it behind closed doors in the dark, we're not sharing it with anyone. I see it. We stay there longest then. So good. Good. Thank you.
Alex, if people want to find you, which I know they're going to want to now, where are you most active on social media? Where can people learn more about you and what you teach?
Yeah. So Facebook is definitely the best place to find me. So it's facebook.com/Alex J Moscow.
Okay.
AlexJMoscow. And you can add me on there, or if you add me, it'll go to follow me, and then you can get updates on my content, different stories that I share, everything from sales, marketing, different stories of personal development, transformational processes, all that stuff. My Facebook would be the best place.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks so much, Natalie. It's been a blast.
Thanks for leveling up with us today. Please share this episode if you found it helpful so others can join in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on future shows. And if you would leave me a 5-star review, I appreciate those so much. I read all of them, and it's how I know that I'm giving you information that you find valuable. And come interact with me over on Instagram at NatalieJillFit. I read all the direct messages and comments over there. Make it a great day, creating everything from nothing.